guys, how are you going? I'm back with another 10 heavy metal bands you haven't heard but should. This is the 46th one. I seem to be doing these 90% of the time now. There's been a few delays, so this didn't go up quite when I wanted it to. But without further ado, we have Arrogance. This was a release that was sent to me as part of a package from a promotion agency. This is some really good black and death metal. It's very tight sounding. It's got a really good production, really big sounding. If you're into your stuff like Belphegor and stuff, then this will definitely appeal. It's got a really nice kind of occult feel, both aesthetically, that was quite hard to say, and sonically. You get a good amount of songs. As you can see here, you get a nice variety, quite a lot of melody in there, but it's just crushing, heavy hitting album. Really good album from Arrogance, definitely worth checking out. Now we've got a blind buy. I occasionally do these, and this time I wasn't disappointed. So we have Aniracus, I think you say that. They're from Spain, so if you're familiar with Graveyard, another really good Spanish death metal band. Now, the difference is Aniracus, unlike a lot of Spanish bands, don't favour the Swedish death metal sound at all. This is the much more Lovecraftian, murky, swirling kind of filth of Morbid Angel, you know, Altars of Madness, Blessed of the Sick. The best Morbid Angel stuff is definitely worshipped in buckets here, with some death and obituary kind of technicality and sludginess thrown in. Really killer album. Aniracus nailed what old school death metal should sound like. Varied. All the titles are in Spanish, I believe, but yeah, check out this Spanish death metal band. Underrated scene, a lot of old school death metal from España. So now we go on to some very underground black metal, a project called Oppress, whose first demo I reviewed, I want to say at the start of this year, maybe end of last year, but it's a one-man project, absolutely flawless production considering the drums are programmed. They sound incredibly realistic. In fact, I would almost think they were real if it wasn't for the fact the project was known to me, but this is released on a Cunt Collective. I can't think who released the other two things. That's a very hard to read logo, and the other one was Razorback Records, just in case anyone wondered. Very dissonant. If you like stuff like Deathspell Omega, of course, the kings of dissonant black metal, then definitely check out Oppress. Now, this is the first album. It's only on cassette at this moment in time, I believe. The thing that really changed for me is the vocals. Rather than sounding more like Attila from Mayhem and kind of weird production, this feels a lot more concise and like a finished idea. So yeah, excellent debut album from Oppress, certainly worth checking out. Now for some pure filth in the form of Muscipula. They are a death metal band. I say band, they don't actually have any members credited, nor can I find anything online, but this is a 3-track demo of doomy death goodness. You know, if you like all those filthy bands, this is on Caligari Records, so if you like that kind of, you know, that kind of sound, it's just murky, evil death metal like Astroferus and Gut Void and Cryptworm and so on and so forth. And Encoffinized is probably a good one, and Rotted would probably be the best one. My brain went away with me there a bit. So there's a really strong bass presence on this that really drives the demo forth. Some really good riffs. Again, probably programmed drums on this one. I can't say that as a definitive, but either way, that's not a make or break for me. I'm a solo musician, so if this is solo, I can completely see the appeal of programmed drums if you can't play drums. And it's a fucking awesome demo, so who really cares how it was made, as long as it's good and it has the right feel, which it certainly does. Now, if you want to talk about death metal having the right feel, who better to go to than Johansson and Speckman? Of course, Roger Johansson being the Swedish death metal guy who has nearly as many bands as me. No, I'm kidding, he has way more. Paganizer, Revolting, Roger Johansson is a band, and of course Paul Speckman, the legendary guy behind Master, one of the classics of death metal, of course. So what do these two titans offer that they haven't already? Well, obviously it's a collaboration of the musicians, and it's exactly what you'd expect. Crushing old school death metal, going from the American and Swedish vein There's some stuff like Vader thrown in there for good measure. Just really crushing album from two juggernauts of death metal's legendary history. Definitely one to check out. I really enjoyed that one. And I'm not so much someone who really cares about supergroups or who's in a band, but those two, of course, are indeed legends. And now we go on to some more Swedish death metal in the vein of not your typical Swedish bands. There's definitely that kind of D-beat kind of thing. There's a lot of punk in here. There's a running theme of just alcoholism and depravity in the song titles and lyrics, such as Shitfister, Livers Bleed, Vodka Till the Grave, Repulsive Erected and Anally Infected, which is one of the classier song titles I think I've read in a while. This is on Soul Cellar Records, as was the last one, I believe. Yeah, it was. I'm a bit bad at labels today, apparently. Repuked, just alcoholic death punk from Sweden. Absolutely killer. If you like D-beats and gritty riffs and crusty sounds, then check out Repuked. It's fucking vile and apparently very good drinking music. And yeah, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but a lot of those kinds of bands are. That's the punk edge coming in, and it's a really good end result. And now we have some other kind of Swedish death metal, also on Soul Cellar Records. We have Furnace, who play more in the Gothenburg-y style of Dark Tranquillity, At the Gates, and Early in Flames, some of those bands, before they got too singy-songy, but, you know, very melodic, kind of picky riffs, some very technical musicianship, very catchy songs, but still feels heavy. It's still very legitimate death metal, and there's a song called Yog Sothoth, which immediately attracts me as a Lovecraft lover. Furnace nail that Gothenburg death metal feel, and not the kind of wimpy shit that came in the 2000s, the good old stuff. I'm a big advocate of stuff like At the Gates and In Flames early stuff, and I'm not so much an advocate of all the really wimpy shit that ruined the name of Melodeath. And of course, I'm a big fan of stuff like Northa and Kalmar from Finland. Next, we have some intense black metal. This is Panzerfaust. They're a Canadian band. This was on Eisenfold Production, or is it production, or is it the German word for production, which I think is Produktionen or something. I don't know, I don't speak German. Sue me. Anyway, this is part 2 of their Sons of Perdition thing. This is Render Unto Eden. Now, immediately, Panzerfaust aesthetically remind me of bands like 1914, with that kind of war-torn imagery, and also the fact that maybe there are some drearier parts, and it's a very heartfelt record, certainly. But the more dissonant guitars and drum work are more in keeping with bands like Maguire and Miss Thurming, and to a lesser extent Sinmara, but if you know those kinds of very cymbal-heavy drum performance, a lot of very sparse but quite catchy and upbeat riffs, very rocky kind of pace to a lot of it. But yeah, this is really good. I wasn't sure what to go into this expecting, as Eisenfold, great label. They have some other more really atmospheric stuff, which sometimes I often enjoy, but sometimes I'm not in the mood for that kind of band. But this really blew me away, and I was a really happy surprise to hear some just absolutely ripping black metal. My brain is not with it today. That's preparing for lockdown or something. I don't know, give me an excuse or something. Cursed Blood, or Cursed Blood, as it will probably be said. Now, I saw this, it was face down, and I was like, oh, cool, some kind of bestial-sounding Black Death. Not really. This is on War Anthem Records, and this is more death thrash in the vein of Assimilation, who I talked about in, I think it was the last video it was. Crucified Mortals, those kinds of bands. They, Hell's Headbangers kind of bands. But yeah, really good death thrash. If you like that kind of thing where in the 80s death metal was born, but it hadn't quite stopped being thrash metal, which is a sound I have definitely grown to appreciate more with age. The ripe old age of 22, that kind of stuff is appealing a lot more to me now than it did as an angsty teen, which is odd. But yeah, definitely, if you like that vein of stuff like Possessed and stuff, of course, Volcano, Sarcophago, but with maybe a bit less focus on the bestial black kind of stuff and a bit more kind of grindy death. Really good though, thrashing, chaotic madness. And finally, as a pre-lockdown treat, I have a special 4-for-1 recommendation, just because this happened to arrive before what I was expecting to close this video with, but no complaints from me. We are going to space thanks to Desert Wastelands Productions, we have 4 songs from 4 bands, which are Cryptic Shift with Cosmic Dreams. Of course, they're UK guys, very talented musicians. Replicant, who I was new to upon hearing this, with their song Unbeing. Inoculation, which I remember reviewing as a Maggot Stomp band, really good EP and really good offering, let's go with, to this tape. And finally, Astral Tomb with Transcendence into the Mortal Plane, guided by a familiar phantasm, which is a really good way of taking up a good portion of the track listing. So, good job, guys. But yeah, jokes aside, this is a killer split. Blood Harvest are doing an LP and CD. There is already a vinyl, I believe. But yeah, Desert Wastelands did the cassette, which I think looks great with this artwork. Perfectly fitting the sci-fi themes. There's Cryptic Shift, bring a bit of thrash to the table. It's very technical death, but not in that kind of lame way, you know, like all the deathcore bands that just focus on the fact they can sweep pick and have triggered drums. That bores me to death. But Cryptic Shift, you know, if you like Gore Guts and that kind of, and Revocation and those kinds of really musically proficient but still credible bands. Replicant bring things a bit heavier, I guess, with just really foul but cosmic death metal. Inoculation, again, bring in a bit more progressive stuff, but still keep it very murky and dark. And Astral Tomb, I keep forgetting the order, close out with just a belting, you know, it's going to launch a shuttle into the stratosphere with a filthy piece of death metal. So yeah, 4 bands, 4 killer songs, great collaboration, and a really worthwhile tape to have. You know, if you enjoy the kind of modern thing of taking old school death metal and giving it a bit of a cosmic remake like Blood Incantation did, and very popularly so, these guys give them a run for their money, and I'm sure Paul Rydell probably already knows about this stuff, as he is definitely an underground maniac. So, full support to those bands, and everyone mentioned in this video, support the labels, the bands obviously. If you want more of these videos, feel free to subscribe and stick around. I'm hopefully going to have another one soonish, depending what arrives when. The UK is going into lockdown tomorrow, so if I'm still alive during lockdown, then I will try and update everyone with another cool batch of underground metal. And last note, I guess, would be I'm already preparing my top 50 or so albums for 2020, and that is a real undertaking, so keep your eyes peeled for that at the end of this year. Until next time, stay metal.